to help retire a campaign debt of $140,000. The letters were sent to companies regulated by the PSC. TV2's Jim Gilchrist reports.
One complaint came from a trucking executive who objected to what he called the letter's blatant reminders that Eskind was about to take office. The letter reads, "I hope this will be my last request for campaign funds until 1986 when I seek re-election. As you know, my term of office as Public Service Commissioner begins on January 1st, 1981. Unfortunately, the campaign is still in the red." The heading of the letter reads, "From the Office of the Commissioner-elect," another reminder of the power of the office. The letter comes right to the point, asking for a check today for $178.54 in an effort to clear the books before January 1st. The letter was sent to friends and contributors and to as many as 1,500 Tennessee companies governed by the Public Service Commission. Eskind today told me that no threat was intended or implied in the heading of the letter.
We did that just to take due notice of the fact that this was not during the campaign, that this was after the campaign, and yet we also take due notice that we would like very much to have the campaign deficit totally cleared up before I do take office. I want to be a commissioner and having to raise money at the same time.
State Elections Commissioner David Collins said today there is no legal restraint against raising campaign money after an election, just so it is properly accounted for. One of Eskind's top advisors told us less than a third of their campaign contributions came from persons with any possible interest in the PSC, and only 1% came from persons who worked for PSC-regulated businesses. Eskind herself conceded that public financing, eliminating any private contributions, might be the best way to end any potential conflicts of interest or possible charges of coerced contributions. And one person very knowledgeable about industry contributions to PSC races said, quote, "There is a very fine line between something like this handled with taste and crossing over that line into something heavy-handed with an implied threat." He continued, "Unfortunately, it's just part of the system and may never change." Jim Gilchrist, Newswatch 2.
Today, State Republican Chairman Tom Beasley responded to Ms. Eskind's fundraising letter. He told us that while he didn't believe the letter was illegal, he did think that kind of solicitation was improper.
Raising money in the PSC from the regulated industries has been going on for a long, long time. The problem with it is, and the reason it develops, is because it's a closed shop. We have maintained for a long time that it's a Democratic playhouse. We're on the outside looking in. I don't suggest that the Republican Party, if it had absolute domination, would be that pure either. But the problem is that there are no checks and balances. Mm-hmm. And this letter is about as subtle as a sledgehammer. Mm-hmm. I'm frankly surprised at Mrs. Eskind that, I mean, the idea of the strong implication of I take office January the 1st, you're going to be regulated by me, help me retire my debt now. It's a bad, bad policy. Mm-hmm.
Award-winning gospel songwriter Gary Paxton is resting comfortably in Vanderbilt Hospital after having been beaten and shot last night outside his Berry Hill home. Paxton told police he went to the aid of two men who came to his door with car trouble. When he climbed inside his van to get some jumper cables, the two strangers apparently jumped Paxton and a fight and shootout took place. TV2's Bob Mueller picks up the story from there.
Investigating officers say Paxton told them he was wary of the two men and put a .38 caliber handgun in his pocket before going into his yard to offer help. During the fight inside the van, Paxton received a broken shoulder, the result of being beaten, and 2 bullet wounds to the upper right back. Somehow during the melee, Paxton managed
in Lebanon today, and Israel says 2 Syrian MiG-21s were shot down. Syria claims Israel also lost 2 planes, but the Israelis deny that. Reports from the Bahamas tonight say that Robert Vesco, the fugitive financier wanted by the United States since 1974, has left Nassau just 2 days after publicly appealing for political asylum. A spokesman says Vesco's destination is not known.
Sure hope you got what I want.
What's wrong?
Pain, itch, you know, hemorrhoids. Been driving all day, and I need Preparation H.
Right. Gives many people temporary relief for hours. Combines active ingredients to relieve pain and itch. Helps shrink swelling of inflamed hemorrhoidal tissue.
That's real medicine. I'll take ointment and suppositories.
Hi. Feeling better?
Thanks to you, good buddy.
Preparation H for hemorrhoidal flare-ups relieves pain and itch, helps shrink swelling.
People across America, from New York to L.A., they're leaving their cars at home and going the Greyhound way. No need to worry about driving when there's someone you can trust.
Next trip, leave your car at home and your troubles behind.
Go Greyhound and leave the driving to us.
This next story started as a tribute, apparently dissolved in bitterness, and today was restored to a kind of glory by people who still believe it's a grand old flag. Bob Faw explains.
Lincoln, Iowa, population 183. Loves the American flag, loves to fly it. But for the last 2 weeks, Old Glory has not flown on Main Street here, where flags had waved for more than a year in tribute to the American hostages. 24 flags had flown here, but last month some started disappearing. Eventually 8 torn down and stolen. No one here is certain who did it or why. Some think it was just a prank. Others are afraid it was malicious.
They got the flag to pull the whole thing.
Yeah. Whoever did it had best not venture into the cafe where Lincoln takes its morning coffee.
I dreamt that if I caught the culprit, I'd tar and feather him, put a United States flag around him, and send him down a railroad track, is what I'd do.
There was no money to buy new flags, just a determination to prevent more thefts, to stop what some called desecration. So Lincoln decided, painfully, to remove all its flags.
Well, I think the mood was pretty sad because we couldn't figure out why people would want to stoop so low to steal flags.
It just makes you feel like, well, you just get sick over it.
Today, the hurting stopped as Lincoln put up a plaque to honor the hostages and new flags bought with contributions sent by many outraged by what had happened. The brief ceremony was especially moving for hostage Catherine Cobb's sister, who lives nearby.
We know that a lot of people, care, but these people went forth and are showing the rest of the world how they feel about it.
It will be different now. The new flags are more secure and will be watched more closely. New symbols as one year ends and another begins. Symbols of a new hope to go with values which haven't changed. Patriotism and pride. Bob Faw, CBS News, Lincoln, Iowa.
For CBS News on this 424th day of captivity for the American hostages in Iran, Dan Rather in New York. Thank you for joining us. Good night and Happy New Year, everybody.
Hello, my name is Sarah.
Later this afternoon, rain ending tonight, becoming partly cloudy tomorrow. It'll be in the low 40s today, the 20s tonight, the upper 30s for tomorrow. And the probability of precipitation is 80% this afternoon and 30% tonight. Now that's the way it looks.
No mention of accumulation, so all the stuff you see on the ground is not really there officially.
I love that, no accumulation.
They don't mention it, when they don't mention it, usually it's not supposed to stick.
Get you every time.
Listen, we've done pretty good today. We had like about 4 people yesterday, and it wasn't even snowing. Today it's snowing, and we've got 7.
7. Things are picking up.
Great.
It's the way it used to be when I was an entertainer in clubs. We'd have 4 people, 7 people come in to see me. I feel back in the old days.
Our crew is bigger than the audience today.
They sure are. We have a good show for you, though, today. You're going to be meeting Jane Eskind, who was sworn in on New Year's Day as the new Public Service Commissioner, and there has been some bit of a controversy around Jane Eskind's swearing in because of some campaign finance solicitations that she participated in. We're going to be discussing that today and some other issues that she will be facing. And you're going to meet Dr. Arthur Lensgraf. You ever been to a chiropractor?
No, I've never been to a chiropractor.
Well, I'm going to tell you about it because Dr. Arthur Lensgraf is a chiropractor and they treat ailments that some people feel there can be no relief for because their medical doctor has not been able to help them. So we're going to be talking with him today.
Okay, he's going to crack a few bones.
He's going to crack some bones.
Here and there. And Jack Favier is here. Jack has something good to warm you up on this cold day, too.
Singing with us is going to be Tom Grant, one of your favorites and mine. So I think we have a good program. We're going to take a brief time out for these messages, and we'll be right back with Noon. Stay where you are, folks.
School is in, football season is here, and when family, friends, and fans gather at your house, you'll be ready for the biggest thirst with this bountiful economy pack of delightful, delicious, refreshing Pepsi. This very economical carton of 8 16-ounce bottles contains 24 very satisfying servings of Pepsi, enough for everybody. And that sparkling flavor, well, you already know about that. It goes perfectly with everything from fall snacks to the most elaborate football buffet. In fact, the Pepsi Challenge proves conclusively more of you prefer the taste of Pepsi anywhere, anytime. So pick up Pepsi in the 8-bottle, 16-ounce economy pack, the giant 2-liter plastic bottle, the new 1-liter returnable bottle, or any way you like them at your grocers this week. The fans will love you for it. In fact, you'll make some fans of your own. Pepsi, bottled in Nashville by Beeman Bottling Company.
Our next guest is Miss Jane Eskind, who is the new Public Service Commissioner. You have won elective office on your second try, and you have our congratulations, Jane.
Thank you, Teddy, and let me wish you and the whole Noon Show crew a very happy, successful new year.
Same to you and your family. Now that we've been nice to each other, let me ask you the question that everybody wants to know, and that is whether you have any regrets about the letter that was sent out asking to pay off what is left of your campaign debt.
At the risk of sounding flippant or facetious, the only regret I have is that the results of the solicitation were really not more successful. I would have liked nothing better than to have gone into office without any campaign debt remaining. That has not been the case, and I'm sorry about that. But to ask the public to participate in the financing of elections is a time-honored tradition in our country and our government. And if that is wrong, then the system is wrong, and the way we finance campaigns is wrong.
Okay, in this particular case, in Jane Eskind's case, though, I think there's a little different edge.
Not really.
To it.
People tried to introduce a different edge, but there really isn't. It's no different than the special interest PACs supporting candidates for Congress. It's no different than lawyers supporting judges in their campaign efforts. We sent out 4,600 letters, a third of which were to people involved with companies that had an interest in the business of the Public Service Commission. That's only a third. And the response has been underwhelming, let me assure you. I think underwhelming. I should have checked the figures today and brought them up to date from yesterday's mail. But I think if we have gotten 30 responses out of 4,600, if we've gotten 30, that's a lot. And it really has not made much of a dent.
You asked each of the recipients of the letters to pay $178.
Right. Okay. That was an arbitrary figure. How do you arrive at that? You just figure. But what we wanted to do was not ask anyone for an amount of money that was going to in any way be overwhelming to anyone. It's a lot more than some have ever contributed or ever thought about contributing, and a lot less, much, much less than special interest money has been traditionally. So what we wanted to do was spread out the support as broadly as possible so the burden would be as diffuse as possible.
Sure.
So it would be taken care of before I was sworn in, and that there would not even be the hint of impropriety afterwards.
But don't you see where some of the public might be a little bit skeptical in the case of a public service commissioner soliciting campaign funds after she is elected from people whom she will be regulating?
Well, I have to answer that question with a question. What is the difference with soliciting funds after an election than prior to an election? What is the difference with an incumbent office holder soliciting campaign monies in anticipation of an election than a person who has been elected trying to pay off a residual debt?
Well, it could, to some, it might seem like a shakedown.
Oh, it shouldn't. It shouldn't. And that, certainly not when you're talking about a modest campaign contribution, as campaign contributions go, certainly special interest. money which many times PACs have given, and you can look at the contributions to Senator Baker, to any of the federal officials, to any of the state officials in statewide elections. You can look at the list of contributions. We're talking about $5,000 to Governor Alexander. We're talking about $5,000 to, you know, people from special interest PAC money, and that's just no different. That money was solicited, and it's no different whether it's people who have a special interest in road construction, or people who have a special interest in health care bills, or people who have a special interest in anything contributing to the candidate of their choice.
But
now, there was no effort to put any pressure on anyone. There were very few, if any, follow-up calls, and I doubt if there were any. We just didn't have the staff for it. If people feel pressured, then I can't control how they feel. I can only control what I do and what my campaign does. And I think all we did was ask for support. Very little has been forthcoming, and there we have it.
Okay, I don't want to dwell on that too long, Jane, but let me say that when you compare, for instance, your statement, part of your statement said presidents, governors, senators, congressmen, judges, mayors, county officers, public service commissioners, all elected officers, all elected officials raise campaign funds in exactly the same way.
That's true.
Now, what that implies is that you're saying that you've done, your job as public service commissioner can be compared to that of a congressman or a senator or something like that. They don't regulate.
Yes, they do.
Well, okay, in a way of being, but I mean, if someone owns an electrical utility...
Who regulates the ICC? Who regulates the FCC? All the federal regulatory agencies are the creation and the creature of Congress and the President. I mean, everywhere there is regulation.
Yeah, the appearance here, though, the appearance of it is that here is this public service commissioner saying to these people who are regulated by her office that if you don't come up with about $178 to help me retire this debt, look out when it's time to regulate your industry.
You were reading into what I said, and there was no threat, no intimidation. All I said was that I would like to retire the debt before I take office. Please help. Now, for you to read into it that kind of implied threat, it wasn't there. If someone felt threatened, that was certainly not in the letter and certainly not my intent. And to show you what we're really talking about, if everybody listening to you and me today would stick $1 in an envelope, the issue would be closed. That's all we're talking about. We have a $1 checkoff for presidential elections. We have, you know, that kind of diffusion so that there is not the hint of any impropriety, any threat implied or real. That's all we were talking about in the letter. And it's what you're talking about is the system. And I have I'm not going to quarrel with the system. I asked to be involved in it. I offered myself as a candidate, and I'm not here to complain about a system I voluntarily got involved with. But the alternative to this kind of fundraising for any political campaign, and I posit it's any political campaign, what about a lawyer who contributes to a judicial campaign? Is that, there's certainly regulation there. Is that wrong? Then let's change the system, or let's look at the system. Let's go into public financing so that the public, all of the public, participates in the election process, as it is now. Very few do.
Would you grant me that it might have been better for Jane Eskind and also for the image of politics in a very skeptical political age if you would have sent out 4,000 letters asking for $178 but not send them to anybody that your office is going to control or regulate?
I hear the question. Let me answer you by saying that every citizen in the state of Tennessee has a special interest in the Public Service Commission. Every citizen. Because what the Public Service Commission does regulates how much you pay for your telephone, for your gas. Those are direct costs. It also regulates how much you pay in indirect costs, how much WSM charges a company that wants to buy advertising on this show. It has an indirect effect because it regulates what WSM has to put into its overhead. So every citizen in the state of Tennessee cares about the Public Service Commission. It is not just the companies which we are aware of overtly, it's everyone. You have a special interest in the Public Service Commission, and the broader the base of support from the citizens of this state, whether or not, no matter where they earn their living, the better off the system will be.
How did you retire the debt from your run for the Senate?
That is retired with a bank loan.
Personal?
Yeah.
Why didn't you retire this one personally?
Don't want to. Don't think that's... What that would mean is that you have an elitist club of politicians who are able to finance elections, and you limit the pool of candidates to only those who can pay for campaigns themselves. And I think that would be a detriment to the system.
Wait a second. Are you saying you're doing the electorate a favor by allowing them to pay off your campaign debt?
To participate in the political process, I certainly feel that is so.
Do you think that they might say no thank you?
I think that they may have, they might, but that's their decision. The broader the base of support, the better the system.
Yeah, but...
You know, you want politicians to be able to buy an office? I don't think that would be good for the system, and I know you don't either.
But if you had, well, if you had been elected to the Senate in 1970, if you had beaten Howard Baker, then somebody could have said, Jane Eskind bought the office. She paid for it herself. She took out a bank loan for $1 million or whatever it was and paid it off.
Well, I would hope that there would have been support in that campaign, as I hope that there will be support in this campaign.
You mentioned the system. I want to just take a moment.
Sure.
You run for the Senate, you borrow a lot of money on your own good name, you pay off that bank loan. You run for the Public Service Commission, you probably put a lot of your own money into it, and now you're asking for the public to retire some of that debt. And you mentioned what's good for the system. Quite honestly, on the basis of the appearance of the 4,000 letters and the fact that 1/3 of them go to people that you will regulate, might it be better for the system, for the Democratic Party, for Jane Eskind, to just go ahead and pay it off yourself?
You know, that's a decision that we're going to have to make with a whole lot of things put into it, but that's not a decision that has been made, and I'm not prepared today to say that that's the decision that I'm going to make. I think it would, frankly, as I say, if it is something that I pay off personally, then you are limited by the number of people who can offer themselves as candidates for you, for everyone. And I think, you know, that it becomes a rich person's club, and I think that really is a terrible... We're depriving ourselves of 99% of the potential population by saying if you want to run, you're going to have to pay for it yourself. I think that would be terrible. I really do. You know, campaigns traditionally have been paid for by people who have an interest in that office. First you go to your family, then your friends, and then to the people who have an interest in the office. And the response from the special interest money that you are implying is feeling so threatened has been so negligible that there is no taint as I take office, no hint of impropriety, because the response has been just 99% of the people who might have a special interest have declined the opportunity.
Okay. No second thoughts about whether it was the right thing to do?
No.
No regrets?
None.
You're not going to send out another letter saying, forget the first one?
No, no. No, I think I have no regrets except that the response has not been more broad-based, and that the issue could have been laid to rest by people who have an interest in the Public Service Commission. and
Jane.
in the integrity of the office.
Okay. Thank you very much for visiting with us.
Thank you, Teddy.
Good
nice
luck to you.
See you. Happy New Year.
Jane Eskind, who is Public Service Commissioner, newly sworn in. We're going to take a 20-second time out, and then you'll meet Jack Favier. Dr. Arthur Lensgraf is on the show today. He's a chiropractor and treats illnesses that you might not think a chiropractor